Good morning. All right, let's try that again. Good morning. Hello, hello. Sam, thank you for joining us. Can you hear us?
Thanks for having me.
Say hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Awesome, awesome. Delighted to have you join us today. Where are you right now, Sam?
I'm in DC. I'm sorry I can't be there in person.
You're in DC and what? Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I have to be in DC today.
We hope you could join us next time in Singapore or Dubai. Alex, it's great to have you here. Why don't we first have Alex share a bit about Worldcoin? Let's keep it under 2 minutes because we have so many things to talk about.
Sure.
And why don't you kick it off?
Sure. I will keep it short because I think most of the things we'll also cover in a conversation. But
Can you speak up a little bit?
okay. I will keep it short because I think the most of it we'll cover in the conversation. But Worldcoin is fundamentally two things. It is a way to prove personhood for the whole world, billions of people, with a physical device we call the orb that you probably have seen somewhere here. It's kind of a mirror ball. And once you verify it, you receive ownership in a digital currency called Worldcoin. That hopefully will be the widest distributed digital currency in the world. And why we think this matters is we think that proof of personhood on the internet is going to be a major topic, but also because that lays the groundwork for QBI. And those two things together, proof of personhood and Worldcoin, will hopefully scale the network really, really quickly to many people.
Thank you for that. Sam, I know you wear many hats, so I have to ask, have you successfully created AI versions of yourself to do all these tasks?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Okay. And Alex, you guys have been traveling all over the world. Worldcoin has been in so many cities and also in Singapore now. What's your strategy here? Where are you guys thinking about?
So when we launched 2 months ago, as probably many of you have seen, and we tried to be in many new markets that we have not been before. So we put orbs in also Asia. We've been in Singapore, we've been in Hong Kong, Tokyo, and just tried to be available in as many markets as we possibly can. And what we learned doing that is that Asia is like a huge market. And there's like so many people here excited about crypto, so many people excited about Worldcoin. So that's part of why we're here today. And we will push much more in Singapore, specifically also. Other than that, I mean, we're really all over the world. We are in Europe, Portugal, Spain, Germany, in India, in Africa. So it's like, it was a lot of travel and super busy time.
Can you share some stats since launch?
Sure. We had a crazy, crazy surge in the weeks after launch. So we have been at 2.1 million users, I think, before launch. We are now at 2.3. But the craziest thing for us was that there were like long, long lines of people waiting to sign up pretty much everywhere. And that was really hard to manage. So what we are trying to do right now a lot is just ramping back up and getting much more orbs out there, talking to a lot of policymakers and just scaling. So we are now at 40,000 sign-ups a week, something like that. But we could do theoretically much, much more by just pushing more orbs out.
For sure, for sure. And Sam, when you first created Worldcoin, I love to hear the story of how the mission has evolved, right? We've seen the onset of ChatGPT 3.5 becoming mainstream adoption. And how has that mission changed, if any, since the beginning of Worldcoin?
The mission actually hasn't changed very much. I think ChatGPT has made it clearer to more people, but the idea that we need to think about proof of personhood and think about new ways to do sort of global governance or global economic systems, that hasn't changed in our mind in importance. I think it's just maybe clearer to the rest of the world.
Gotcha. And when we're looking at the kind of increasing adoption of ChatGPT 3.5, should we think about the adoption curve for Worldcoin to correlate?
I think they're pretty disconnected at this point, but I think the adoption for Worldcoin will hopefully follow a similar shape.
Gotcha. Thank you. And Alex, our crypto industry has historically been horrible at building really good experiences and good UX for users. And we also have had quite a number of hurdles with the regulators, right? What have your learnings been like in the last 3 to 6 months in those areas since launching Worldcoin?
So I mean, regulators and kind of talking to regulators, talking to policymakers is a big part of what I do kind of these days, especially after launch. And I mean, very clearly the industry has had a hard time, especially last year. So there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions like why crypto? Why crypto here? How does it work? There's a lot of countries that I travel to that really just try to figure out the general regulation, kind of the general regulatory framework around crypto. I mean, all of us are aware of the United States, but similar situations are happening around the world, where we have parliaments and ministers debating how to regulate crypto as a whole. And so, honestly, a lot of what I do when I talk to people is just talking about that, because they really are still figuring out the fundamentals and the general regulatory framework. But I think it's going to progress, and it will have to progress relatively quickly. I think Worldcoin to some degree accelerated that in some countries. We learned over the last 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, of course, we will continue to help and always try to talk to as many people as possible. And then to your other question about use cases of crypto and like general user experiences, I think the major problem that we all face is that most of the products we build are not yet mainstream, or actually very few of them are. And so, but I think that's going to change. There's a lot of exciting things now happening.
So what have you learned just from, the conversations of when you're bringing the orb to a person, right? They're asking, hey, what is this thing? To how do I actually enable my information protected and my privacy protected when I'm scanning my orb, right? These are all very difficult and kind of educational things that you need to start introducing to the users.
Yeah, it really depends on where you talk to users. Kind of the bias is very different. I think Asia is actually very surprising to me, because you don't start explaining what crypto is, which is usually actually what you face, even in any European markets, much more than you would expect. It's like, what is you rarely can make the analogies to other crypto projects or protocols. But here, of course, it's very different. I think crypto adoption here is very, very strong. And so when I pitch Worldcoin, of course, I talk about all the things it will enable. But to your specific question about data, is that your data is deleted. We don't have any data of you. The protocol doesn't have any data of you. But more importantly, whenever you start using World ID and everything connected to it, it is separated with zero-knowledge proofs from your financial wallet and your actions. So this means that you actually stay completely anonymous, which is, I think, a very, very powerful thing, given I do believe that we have to figure this out globally, some kind of verification mechanism on the internet, and I think World ID is a chance to do that in a really, truly privacy-preserving way that also works independent of governments can solving the problem.
Just a show of hands, how many of you have actually scanned your eyes here today at the orb, in the conference?
It's like 10%.
10%. Yeah. How many of you are interested in doing so? Okay, we have a good number of hands showing up.
Oh, wow.
That's great. Alex, I'm especially also curious about how you guys are thinking about go-to-market, right? When it comes to approaching regulators, we talk about that a little bit, but how are you thinking about really taking this to the ground of different cities, and what has that adoption been like?
It's very different, really, in different markets.
Yeah.
So the general playbook is always we start with universities mostly because that's where you find.
University, you said?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because that's where you find like super tech savvy people.
Yep.
And so usually someone of our team would show up at university with an orb, start pitching Worldcoin, and then pick whoever seems very talented or entrepreneurial to actually take an orb and take it from there at university campus. Then we try to find local partners and roll it out from there. So but again, it's very local, it's very different. It's very different for African markets than it is for European markets or Asian markets. But generally, I think what is interesting and different about Worldcoin is that we really try to be everywhere all at once. So it's not focused on only LATAM or only Europe, but we really try to be balanced globally. So that makes it really, really challenging, very hard, because there's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different backgrounds.
Yeah. Sam, I think you were also recently in Asia visiting Korea and Japan with Worldcoin. Can you share your little bit of your observations of the markets here? And we'd love to hear more about that.
The excitement level was super high. I was very impressed with all the people I talked to. I think that technological maturity in general throughout Asia, particularly in South Korea and Japan, but a lot of other places, makes it exciting for crypto and AI and a lot of other sort of frontier technologies.
For sure. And when you're looking, and you yourself has been an entrepreneur for quite some time, right? And you have seen so many companies being taken from 0 to 1 and beyond. What have you seen and is needed for crypto to reach main adoption? What are you thinking there when it comes to the next stage for crypto?
Well, certainly I think Worldcoin is one answer to that. But more generally, I think people need to make it easier to use, better, sort of more important use cases, and just a clearer value proposition overall. But I think a lot of that work is happening.
A lot of
that work is happening.
Yep. Gotcha. And Alex, I know one of the largest criticisms for our industry has been that there's no real utility for crypto, right? Can you share with us some real-world use cases that you imagine Worldcoin or any other type of projects that you see can really push the industry forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, for Worldcoin, I think hopefully in the next year or so, we will start seeing major integrations, so you can actually start verifying yourself online with your World ID. Maybe actually one of the bigger social media companies or something like that. Like none of this is actually figured out, but I think that's at least what we're aiming at or try to make happen. I think one of the major things that is now happening in crypto is actually stablecoin transfers. That's actually a real world use case. I mean, the Visa announcement last week I think was pretty big.
Yes.
Honestly, I think that's like pretty much the only real like large scale example that we have right now as an industry. But yeah, for Worldcoin, it will be initially very much focused on World ID for the next year or so. And then at some point it will emerge much more around the fact that the network itself is so large that developers can build on top of it. So it really is right now all about growing and reaching as many people as we can. I think the mic is going on and off.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's a very good question. I have a lot of confidence and hope that Worldcoin can really bring a lot of adoption to crypto, especially in the good kind. When we're seeing around 3 million or 2.3 million users already being brought in via the orb, it's very promising numbers that I'm seeing initially. This mic is going in and out, so I'd love to get it fixed very soon. But I think one of the other questions that we're looking at and we're facing as an industry is that how do we start gradually decentralizing, right? Once you reach a certain milestone, people will start asking you about decentralization.
Yep.
How are you thinking about decentralization on the team front and on the project front?
Yep. I mean, it really is one of the major focus areas. It's actually what Sam asks me, I think, once a week at this point, is decentralization and kind of the progress we can make about it. In our case, it is, of course, trickier than it is the case usually, because you have hardware that needs to be produced by other people. It needs to be somewhat commissioned. So there's a lot of new challenges here that I think other crypto projects would not face. But we will figure it out. And I think that's really internally with an engineering team, one of the major focus areas. So I think within the next 2 years, we will be in a place where you can really say it's meaningfully decentralized. And then, of course, within the next 5 to 10 years, fully decentralized. And we're not having any control anymore of it.
Sam, do you have thoughts on decentralization and for Worldcoin?
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, but from what I think I heard, I agree that decentralization for Worldcoin is really important, that I ask Alex about it very frequently, and I think it'll be a great milestone for the company to get to.
Yeah, Alex has mentioned that you guys talk about Worldcoin on a weekly basis, right? How has your role evolved with Worldcoin? I think you made a face there. I'm curious to hear what are your thoughts there right now?
No, I was just saying, I mean, Alex does an incredible job running the company,
Yeah.
and I try to be available for whatever help he needs, but I mean, Alex and the team are just doing incredible work.
Yeah. I mean, from building a orb from scratch, maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think that's super interesting and just even worthwhile for folks to just look at and take a look when they're here in the booth.
Talk about how we built the orb.
How you built the orb from scratch, right?
I mean, it really is completely from scratch. So we had to build everything down to the lens, really, from ground up. We started the company pretty much in the middle of COVID. And so we had this crazy situation where we were sitting in a small town in Erlangen in Germany, which is like a small town, and with the hardware team and build everything from scratch. And every Saturday we would go out and test the hardware in the city with users. Well, at least if there was no complete lockdown, but that given, we kind of every Saturday took out a new prototype, talked to users, saw what the reaction is and how it's going, and then iterated again and again. And then 2 years ago, kicked off the first manufacturing effort, really, which was, he had a completely new story, taking a prototype and manufacturing it at scale. And now, internally, we actually have much more sophisticated devices already than the ones that you see here. So there's going to come a lot of progress in the coming years.
Should we expect the orb to have a second version, third version coming out?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you should expect a new version every 2 years, I think, with better security, better imaging, all of these things.
One of the questions I want to come back to is privacy. It's a very common topic brought up by everyone who either understands Worldcoin or who don't understand Worldcoin, because this is what they care about the most. Maybe let's talk about that again. How are users' data being protected? And when you're working with enterprise customers and partners, how is that managed there?
So it actually is pretty simple, is when you want to verify when you sign up, the orb first checks that you're an actual human being. So there's a thermal camera and other cameras in front of the orb that actually check with a couple of neural networks on the device that you're an actual human being versus a display or a more complicated attack to the device. Once that passes, a picture of the eye is taken. And why the eye? Because the eye actually has enough information to uniquely verify billions of people, which face or fingerprint or all of these other modalities would not have. And then a unique code is calculated out of that picture, signed by the orb, and that is then the only thing that actually leaves the orb. So the data is deleted. But then, much more importantly, that code is inserted in, like right now it's a database, at some point it will be a blockchain, of course, but it's inserted in a database, checked against all other users. And if that uniqueness check works, you as a user then can verify via zero knowledge proof that you're included into that set. But what that means is that neither us nor the service you log into knows who you actually are. So essentially you stay completely decoupled from your actual uniqueness code. And then of course no data stored.
So the data is deleted upon really once you register the orb and have received a world ID.
Yes.
I love to switch a question to Sam. Sam, you've been pretty quiet there.
I'm happy to talk.
Talk about your vision of kind of Worldcoin and ChatGPT and OpenAI. My mic is also going in and off. I apologize. Talk about your vision of how you imagine World ID and Worldcoin coexisting with kind of the new world of AI, right? That I'm calling it now.
Yeah, look, I think none of us quite know what the world of AI in it is going to be like. It can change in all of these extremely profound ways. We're seeing just the barely tip of the iceberg of that with ChatGPT. As these systems become more powerful and become part of our lives and society in all these new ways, we think that a lot of the things WorldCoin is working on are going to be important in that world, but we'll see as we go, and we'll evolve with a very tight feedback loop.
What do you expect to be the largest hurdles for Worldcoin, given your experience kind of going through with OpenAI?
Well, I think getting any new thing to work is just really hard. It's amazing how much WorldCoin has already done. Like the scale of the network is already quite impressive, but there's obviously a mountain of challenges still in front of the project. It's hard to sort of pick one and say, this is the hardest one. Like it's a lot of things that all have to come together, but it's like an incredible team and incredible progress out of the gate.
Maybe just name two. Two challenges that you're seeing facing
Two challenges for WorldCoin?
for Worldcoin in the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, the operational challenge is obviously huge. If you think about what it takes to just get these orbs manufactured and explained to people and sent around the world, and operators and all that. And the other is, of course, just the sort of like overcoming the kind of like the biometrics resistance, for lack of a better word, that some people feel when they first hear about the project. But again, both of those I think trend well.
Both of those, sorry?
Trending well, like the company's making good progress.
Understood. And you've seen industries kind of thrive and also companies die, right? What advice do you have for an industry like ours, right? We have written through multiple bear and bull cycles. What advice do you have, humbling our industry here directly, but what advice do you have for our industry, for folks who's been building in this bear market, and what should we continue to look forward to, and just any kind of tips for us?
Conviction and focus. I think that's always this underrated special combination, and then focus on the user.
Can you give us an example of what you're seeing in terms of conviction and focus in crypto, if you see any in terms of successes that we can model after?
Well, Worldcoin is the project in crypto that I know best by far, and that is a team with incredible conviction in what they're doing and focus on what happens to get there. So Worldcoin is for sure the example I would hold up.
Yep. Another example I definitely could think of is Coinbase, right? They have really built along with our industry, and with the recent launch of Base, we've seen a lot of traction and volume on projects like Friendtech. So I think the last question for Alex, what do you wish the public to know more about Worldcoin that have not yet been discussed much?
Honestly, I think it's mostly around just understanding the fundamentals of it, that it is not, we don't have your data, it is privacy preserving, all of these like standard things, just get them home and get people to understand it. I think that's really most of what we face right now. There's nothing super like tricky that I would like people to understand.
Yeah, I definitely encourage everyone to go check out the booth downstairs and get your eyes scanned and give it a try, because it's definitely shaping the future of what our, I think, crypto technology is, but world also verification, identification. So thank you so much, Sam, for joining us. Maybe any last parting words for our audience?
No, I think that's a good place to leave it.
When will we see you in Singapore again?
Hopefully pretty soon, actually. I'm currently working on a trip.
Okay. We'll look forward to it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let's give it a round of applause for our audience, our guests.
Thank you.